Okay. Is that okay? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, don't you feel like
I love that. How's that? Okay, great. All right, so it's working. If you can make your way into the sanctuary, that'd be great. Thank you. Oh, you're back. Okay. Now we can get going. Please make your way into the sanctuary so we can get going.
it's on that stand right there. On that stand. So I'm going to do a quick check too for my
Oh,
voice.
yeah, go right ahead.
I think I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. It's a little low. Welcome, welcome. Come on in.
Huh? You do that often? Is it just like that? Just like that?
It's remote towels.
I love it.
I love it. It's great.
Okay, the door is closed. Oh, that's my favorite song.
Your husband was taking a picture of you, and I said, I thought of another Stevie Wonder song. Isn't she? Because he was taking a picture of you.
That's my favorite song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come on in and take a seat. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Hi, Nancy. So whether you're in the sanctuary or you are online, we are blessed with your presence. Thank you, Reverend Kathleen, for saying that earlier. We're blessed by your presence. So as clerk of society, it is my honor to officially open the 206th annual meeting. So this gathering is a vital part of our shared commitment to democratic principles, where we come together in community to elect new board members and shape the future of our congregation. Today, we also celebrate the dedication of people who have served and those to follow. Thank you for stepping forward. The board has selected our first vice president, Dixie Goss, to chair this meeting. So I will call Dixie up now so we can proceed with purpose and gratitude. And happy, happy Black History Month, I must say that.
Thank you all and welcome. Before we begin, before we open the polls, I'd like Reverend Kathleen to say a few words so we can be started in the right sentiment.
It is always dangerous to ask a preacher to say a few words, but I will try and keep it to a few words. First, this is so neat. I have to say this. I love that. We're going to light our flaming chalice to get us in the mood for this meeting. You know, at last Sunday's Candidates Forum, one of the All Souls members asked an important question. She said something like, I've heard a lot of topics addressed, but I haven't heard anyone talk about the fact that we are a spiritual community. Sometimes in doing the business of the church that involves finances and governance and administration, it is easy to lose sight of one essential truth, that we aren't here to run a business, but to engage in the sometimes hard, but always heartful work of spiritual community. So Unitarian Universalist theologian James Luther Adams once wrote, human beings, individually, collectively, become human by making a commitment, by making promises. The human being as such, as Martin Buber says, is the promise-making, promise-keeping, promise-breaking, and promise-renewing creature. So I'm going to invite you now to make some promises to one another as we begin this democratic process of electing officers and being in covenant with one another. And your response is simply, I promise. So I will bring my best self to these deliberations. I will assume good intentions. I will embrace our differences and commonalities in the spirit of love, curiosity, and respect. I will treat my fellow congregants with respect and kindness. I will cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. Thus do we covenant together with these promises to do the sacred work of building beloved community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. So now I have the privilege of opening our polls. First of all, Victor Fidel has been chosen as the Inspector of Elections. I think Victor's here or something. There he is. Thank you. So the polls are now open. They will remain open until approximately 2 p.m. The password, which you've all been anxiously awaiting, is Lexington with a capital L, all the rest small letters. And if you have not brought your cell phone, it ran out of charge, you're having problems, there are people in the vestibule that can help you with voting. And there are also paper ballots, I believe, available if someone completely forgot their cell phone or needs other assistance. So if you need assistance, check in the back and we will have assistance so you can vote. So now, while you're all busily voting, I'll give you a moment, but then I want to read the list of members and friends who have died in the past year. And so, if we'll just take a moment and settle and think about these members of All Souls. Arnold Brzeski. Stand up, please. I'm sorry. Arnold Brzeski. Joan Brown. Tom Creasy, Gerald Fessenden, Lillian Framule, Larry Gergel, Yangnin Kurz, Lisa Larson, Paul Lenner, Abraham Mulgerta, Meg Raftis, Thord Palmlund, and Frank Patent. Please take a moment to remember our friends and past members. Thank you. I'd like to call on Tom Blum for our gratitude to our staff and volunteers.
So behind every worship service from Pamela and Kathleen, or as you saw them today, interchanged, every piece of music you hear, every adult ed program, every time you walk through the doors, there are dedicated people whose efforts often go unseen, but their impact is felt. And I want to take a moment to shine a light on them. So to our administrative staff, Cecily, Taylor, Gretchen, Rudy, Rebecca, and Gabby, you ensure the day-to-day operations run smoothly. Thank you for your organization, your initiative, your patience, and your efficiency. To our facilities team, Ewan, Maverick, and Robert in the back, you keep our sacred spaces and gardens welcoming and beautiful. Thank you for your attention to detail, and especially those evenings when you stay late to clean and prepare the space for the next day. Thank you. To the finance team that reports to Nadira. Where did Nadira go? Oh, there's Nadira. Kristen and Maxine, they count the money and pay the bills. Without what you do, none of this would happen. And to our educators and musicians, including Jessica, Alejandro, Trent, Aaron, and Barbara, you inspire us with your talents, whether through RE classes, adult ed discussions, or the cornucopia of soul-stirring music. You ignite the spirit of this congregation and remind us of the joy of discovery and growth. So individually, you're all remarkable. But together, you're a fantastic team, and you embody what it means to live our values and serve this community with love, integrity, and purpose. So on behalf of everybody here, thank you for your passion, talent, and commitment. So please join me in a round of applause for our extraordinary staff.
I would like Miles Chapin to come forward to present the Deacons Award.
There you are, and there you are. Before I present the award, for the people online, that password is Lexington with a capital L for all you voters out there. So, once again, it is my pleasure and privilege to give out the annual Deacons Award. If you're not familiar with this award, we have a little boilerplate that will tell you about it. The Deacons Award is presented to an All Souls member of 5 years or more who has demonstrated exemplary service as a volunteer in one or more areas of church life or church programs, service that may be relatively unnoticed by the general congregation. The deacons founded this award to honor persons who have not received sufficient recognition for their dedication and the time and the effort that they have expended. This year's recipient of the Deacons Award is Alyn Wesson. And she's here. I saw her. Alyn, come on up. Come on up. Let me sing your praises in person. Let me embarrass you in front of everyone. All right. And when I'm finished, you can make remarks if you want. So a member since 2001. Alyn has volunteered, and I'm pronouncing your name correctly, I hope.
Yep, it's great. Alyn.
Alyn, that's it. She has volunteered in many areas of church life over many years. She currently serves as the editor of the Alliance Alert of the Women's Alliance, one of the better publications, I might add, and worked on the holiday gift tables. She is currently the president of the Annie Eaton Society, for which she also worked on preparations for its 150th anniversary coffee hour. She has participated in Monday Night Hospitality and has served on the Religious Education Committee. She also contributed to the bicentennial book, All Souls at 200. So this award is for her many contributions for the life of our congregation and our affiliated outreach programs. Here's the award. That's for you. Here's the certificate. Suitable for framing.
Oh, is this a Jim Moskin special?
It sure is.
Thank you.
And there he is. Thank you,
Thank
James.
you. Wow.
And that says the language that I just used is in there.
Oh,
That's for
thank
you. And I even brought a bag. You can bring it all home. There's a box
great.
for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
A moment.
Thank you. Hi. So I would like to say a few words to say thank you very much to the deacons. That's really nice. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Dorothy. I don't remember her last name. She was my daughter's first grade Sunday school teacher in RE here. And she convinced my daughter that she should work at Monday Night Hospitality, this first grader. And I'll also give a shout out to my daughter, Nora, because she dragged me to Monday night. And that's the first service I remember that I did in any serious way. And so thank you all. And also to Sumi Kubota, who was one of the crew there who welcomed us. She was presented with this honor last year. Then at Monday night, I got to know George Collins a little better. He was the head of Monday Night Hospitality, longtime head. And the RE director put us together to teach in Sunday school Timeless Themes, which is a UUA curriculum about the Bible, the stories from the Hebrew and Christian Bibles. And it was such an honor and so inspirational to work with him. He was a secular humanist who knew the King James Bible backwards and forwards. And this was teaching these Bible stories from a very Unitarian perspective. It was so interesting. And he also said the most important thing we're doing is not teaching Bible stories. The most important thing we need to do is make the kids want to come back. And he was not above bribery. He woke up early every Sunday morning and cooked cupcakes for the kids. Then I would also like to thank Christine Goodwin, who kind of pulled me into the historic and wonderful Women's Alliance, and also to Christina Bellamy and Marilyn Collins, who kind of encouraged me to join the historic and very historically important Annie Eaton Society. So thank you again. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And just a reminder for anyone arriving late or tuning in late online, the password for voting is Lexington with a capital L. So now, to move on, we have the Women's Alliance Award, which will be presented by Christine Goodwin and Michelle Jowan.
Thank you. I'm Christine Goodwin, the president of the Women's Alliance, and to let you know that the Women's Alliance Award was voted on in 2022. This is going to be the third award. In order to recognize the achievements of women in the field of social justice, human rights, and Unitarian Universalist values. The Women's Alliance of the Unitarian Church of All Souls has created the Women's Alliance Award. An award committee makes a recommendation to the Women's Alliance Executive Board for approval, and I would like to thank Michelle Jowan, the chairman of the committee, as well as members of the committee, Terry Manzella, Karen Steele, Sandy Eckberg, and Sandra Fisher. So thank them all for their work. The award shall be given to a woman or gender-expansive person, trans person, non-binary person, or gender-fluid person, or a group of two or more such people, but not an entire organization, who are associated with the Unitarian Church of All Souls as a current or past member of the church or member of the Women's Alliance or active participant in an All Souls program or related organizations. Recipients of the award will have contributed to social justice, human rights, or activism that supports Unitarian Universalist values and principles. Michelle Jowan will present the award, which includes a certificate, an award, and a donation of $500 to the recipient's charity of choice that meets the Alliance's charitable giving guidelines. Thank you.
I really feel like there should be trumpets blaring and a drum roll. This year's honoree is our Judy Samuelson. Right? So Judy, please come up as we talk about you. Okay. This is your award. And now I'm going to have to do what Judy hates, which is to sing her praises, because she's the most humble of us all, and we all know that I love to sing praises. So Judy makes the world a better place. She is one of the foremost voices and thought leaders as to how business can operate in ways that contribute to society and remain profitable. She drives change to align business decisions with societal well-being. In the world we find ourselves, I would call her a warrior and a visionary. She is the founder and executive director of the Aspen Institute's Business and Society program. Under her leadership, signature programs include 1, a 10-year campaign to disrupt Milton Friedman's narrative about corporate purpose. 2, a multi-year dialogue to create the Aspen principles of long-term value creation. And 3, a partnership with Korn Ferry to rethink executive pay. She's the author of 6 New Rules of Business, Creating Real Value in a Changing World. This book has been received with critical acclaim, and I paraphrase that these new rules will be embraced by the best and smartest leaders, those who see the potential of business to be a profound force for good in the world. Judy is a Rockefeller Foundation Bellagio Fellow and a director of the Financial Health Network. She writes regularly for Quartz at Work, and you should really try to catch her on LinkedIn. I mean, what I see is just mind-blowing. If this were, no, seriously, you got to read her. If this were, she will challenge you as to the possibilities. If this were not enough, Judy has been one of the most influential members of All Souls. She has served on the Board of Trustees and was president in 2005. During her tenure, she dealt with the bond of union change with the congregation and the church clergy, a monumental feat. Post-board, she became a deacon and has continued to consult boards that came later, particularly during important strategic planning initiatives. She has served on the nominating committee and played a major role in our last capital campaign. Judy is a hero for so many of us and represents the best of Unitarian Universalism and what it means to be a member of the great family of All Souls. It is such a deep honor to present the Women's Alliance Award to her. So, again.
Thank you. Okay, this is over the top. This was over the top. Thank you. I did have warning on this, so I don't know why I'm crying now. But I cry every morning when I sit in this sanctuary. I need this place more than I can tell you right now. I sure needed it this morning. I had read Heather Cox Richardson at 7 a.m. And I needed this place. I never make it through the first hymn, especially now that we have the hymnals back in the pews. I never make it through the first hymn without letting the entire emotion of the last week go, as I am again now. This means a lot to me, not because of the recognition, although it obviously feels really good. Thank you so much. And for taking the time to understand my work, Michelle, is means a lot to you and all the members of the Women's Alliance who participated in this. But it means a lot to me to be doing it in this room, in this moment, in this congregation. You know, I am an institutionalist at heart, and to be part of something that's 206 years old. The only other institution that's lived longer than that I have a direct association with is the United States of America. And both of them have their challenges, both of them have their risks. I have to believe in both of them, as I'm sure all of you do. Michelle and Christine called me to tell me this was coming up as the fires in LA were raging. And I grew up in Southern California, that's home base for me. I know everyone here has tales and connections back to that other city, you know, the LA, New York connection runs deep. But of all of the horrific stories that I know of, I have a younger cousin who lives in Pacific Palisades, and they lost their home, 2 teenage daughters. I mean, they're all fine. But her husband is the minister of the Methodist Church that is a descendant institution of the Chautauqua-esque gathering that started the Pacific Palisades as kind of a colony 100 years ago, and that church also burned down. So they lost their home, and they lost their other home, because this is my other home. And I don't know what I would be doing if I was processing losing my home. The same way I needed to come here, you know, after 9/11, or I need to come here every Sunday now. I don't know what would I do without this sanctuary now as the place that I come to be with all of you, to be together. I didn't used to go to the annual meeting. I started going to the annual meeting maybe 10 years into our now 40-year or something like that residency in this church. I started going because Barbara Hossein, if you're on there, shout out to Barbara Hossein, who's probably watching from Indiana, because I said, it used to be on Tuesday nights, and we had young kids who were both here, no longer young, although she's got a young one right there. Anna, thanks for being here. Sarah, thanks for being here. But Barbara said, of course you go to the annual meeting. She said, that's where it happens. That's where the insiders are. So I'm enough of an institutionalist that I want to be where the insiders are. And that's why it's so exciting to be doing this with all of you right now. So my message is, let's all lean in, you know. We've leaned in. We're back in the sanctuary. You know, when we first started coming back after COVID, they were like, I counted every Sunday. I remember when we crossed 30 people. And now I think we're getting to like over 150 per Sunday, and you see the number of hands raising. So yes, lean in, come back in the church, be back in the pews. And we need to lean into this place because, of course, we're in the middle of this incredibly important capital campaign. So raise your hand if you're already involved out there. Volunteer, help call on other people. This is the second phase of a 10-year capital campaign. And now we're shoring up Wigan House, we're shoring up the garden, we're shoring up the roofs of Wigan House. We're making this place more accessible and more functional. And it's an important time, and so let's all lean in. And then finally, the Women's Alliance is so critical because it's one of those nodes that make this place really work. It's like the RE program was for us when our kids were young. It was a place where we really personally connected with others in a way that you do throughout the year and not just on Sundays. And we have many of those nodes. Some of them are still needing to be rebuilt. I'm cheered by how many who raise your hand if you're under the age of 40 and you're here. Yay, I like it. Young adults is perhaps, for me, one of the most important things we need to build, along with the religious education program again. But this church is strong because of the individual little nodes that are strong. And so my gratitude to the Women's Alliance, which is showing us how this is done. So thank you to Christine for your leadership, has been phenomenal these last years. And thank you, all of you, for being here.
So on our agenda, at this point, we're going to have a closing of the polls, but I'm going to leave it open for just a little bit longer because we haven't, excuse me, they haven't been open all that long. So I'm going to move ahead and call on Mark Leeds for the Past President's Award. And again, if any of you missed it and are late coming, the password is Lexington with a capital L. Mark?
Thank you, Dixie. Just for a moment. Anyone who served on the board here knows how much work it is. And anyone who's been board president knows that it's just an overwhelming level of responsibility and love. The ability to carry out those functions is in large part dependent upon you, the parishioners who help, the ones who make a difference, the ones who show up. And so the Past President's Award is a recognition of the people who show up and have helped. This year, the award is going to Sherry Henderson and David Poppy. My notes on this wonderful couple begin with their arrival at All Souls for the purpose of Doug, their son, going through the religious education program. And I have to say that I was blessed that Doug was one of my students when I was the third grade RE teacher. And he's just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful kid who has the best of values. They co-chaired the capital campaign to restore the sanctuary. David served for 6 years on the board, is a past and current member of the Finance Committee, and currently chairs the Investment Committee and co-chairs the Governance Task Force. Sherry has been co-chair of the Stewardship Committee, when we had one, has contributed to adult education, including programming during COVID, was co-chair of the Ordination Committee for Pam Patton, and most recently created the Big Read at All Souls. They are devoted members of the church, and it's an honor to be able to honor them.
We had no idea this was coming, so lucky for you, we haven't prepared anything. But I would just say, thinking about Mark, Mark was Doug's 4th grade teacher, and it was an incredible year for him. I've told some of you this before. We really didn't come because we thought we had a spiritual hole in our lives. We came because we thought our son probably needed some level of religious education, and that we weren't doing the right thing for him by providing him with none. And we're here 18 years later, and All Souls has become this incredibly important community for us and part of our lives. I've met and made friends with so many of you and done work that, and I think Sherry would say the same, work that's been really meaningful for us. So I had no idea this was coming. I said, Sherry, do you want to say anything? And she said, no. So I'm monopolizing the microphone, but I just want to say, 1, thank you, and 2, if you're newer, what you put into it, you'll get out 5 times more, 10 times more. And if you think you're missing something in your life, lean into it anyway. You'll get more back than you ever thought you would. So thank you.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for all of the presenters and all of the recipients. So, are there any paper ballots that people have that we need to collect? Hold them up if you do. I don't see any. Anyone have paper ballots? Does anyone need any more time for voting? Is everyone... I'm sorry? Okay, we can leave them open until 2, that's fine. So we'll move on, and I will repeat the password one last time. It's Lexington, capital L, and we will move ahead and let Julie Brannon give us the audit update.
Hello, everybody. What is an audit anyway? Well, imagine you're a college student and your mom gives you a debit card. A good mom is going to check over your account every now and then to make sure you have enough money and that you're not overdrawn, also that you're not dealing drugs. Each year, All Souls auditors, PFK O'Connor Davies, plays good mom to our finances. They review our financial records for the most recent fiscal year, in this case, the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. They verify that our financial statements are in good order and compliant with generally accepted accounting practices. Auditors don't check every transaction. They typically use a sampling technique and focus on larger transactions. Our auditors pay careful attention to donor intent to check that when money was donated for a specific purpose, it's actually used or reserved for that purpose. Auditors also look for errors in record keeping and any weakness in our internal controls. Auditors point out ways that financial practices can be improved. An audit provides reasonable assurance that our financial statements are free from major misstatements. Audits are extremely important to build trust with donors, to ensure that funds are used properly, and that the church records are reasonably accurate. The audit provides key input for the board's most important responsibility, which is to conduct financial oversight and ensure financial health. Our auditors once again gave us this year an unmodified or clean opinion for the fiscal year that ended in June of 2024. The audit committee met with the auditors several times and recommended that the board approve the audit, and the audit was approved at the January board meeting. Now, the audit report is a complex document, which is why we usually say if a member of the church wants to see the whole audit, they're welcome to ask Nadira and get a copy. But we don't usually give it out because it is very complicated. But here are a few highlights. Our operating bottom line, which excludes capital expenditures because they're a separate major category, showed a surplus of $195,000, but the surplus was generated by an additional drawdown from the Capital Reserve Fund, which we used to call the endowment, of $300,000 for cash management purposes. Without that draw, we would have had a deficit of $105,000. Annual giving fell $232,000 from the prior year, which is about 14%, and we missed our annual giving target by over $200,000. We withdrew about $1.1 million from our reserves, of which about $800,000 was for capital expenses for Wigan House roof repairs, chapel repairs, and a loan repayment. The audit provides a rough breakdown of where we devote our resources. Worship and music is 44% of our expenses, fellowship and community 23%, management and general 13%, religious education for children and adults 8%, service and social justice 6%, and fundraising also about 6%. Now, it's important to know that the purpose of the annual meeting is not to have a complicated discussion about our finances, and the board, your board, will hold a finance dialogue soon in the next few months to review our finances in more detail, not only from the audit's perspective, which is from 7 months ago, but also from the perspective of where we stand with respect to our current budget and what are our priorities and our challenges. I would like to thank our auditors, our staff, and the entire audit committee members for helping make this happen. Our auditor, Joe Izzo, Joe, just stand for a moment, please, is here to answer any questions if they happen to come up during the Q&A portion of the meeting, or if you want to grab him quickly afterwards. So that is the audit report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you to all of the audit committee who, and our auditors, of course, who worked on this. It's about 10 minutes to 2, and I'm seeing no other voting people that seem to need more time. I think at this point we will close the polls unless there is an objection. If there is, we can wait another 10 minutes. All right, so the polls are now closed, and our assistants will begin with our electronic, mainly ballot counting. So at this point, we'll ask Reverend Kathleen to give the minister's report.
Well, first of all, congratulations to all the recipients of the Deacons Award, the Women's Alliance Award, the Past Presidents Award. I haven't been with you very long, but I have seen such hard work and such evidence of deep love and passion and commitment. So congratulations to all of you. So happy Groundhog's Day, everybody. Yeah. You know, it's a very strange, oh my gosh, I'm sounding so Midwestern, sorry. It's a strange ritual that we enact every year on February 2nd, born of superstition, but it's one that's beloved regardless. And you know, most people don't really care about whether or not the groundhog saw his shadow, although who knows what happened? 6 more weeks, 6 more weeks of winter. But more often than not, when people think about Groundhog's Day, they think about that film from 1993, the one with Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell. I see some heads nodding. For those of you who may not have seen it, Bill Murray plays Phil Connors. He's a cranky and obnoxious news reporter who finds himself caught in this time loop, which forces him to repeat every day in the same way over and over and over again. Now, I am sure when that film came out, UU churches heard many a minister preach about this theme because it's a good metaphor for then, and it is for us today. And so as I stand in this sacred space and offer you my reflection on what I've read, seen, heard, and felt in these 32 days, I think about this metaphor of Groundhog's Day. And then how it's good for churches, and particularly my work as an interim minister. Because churches can, over time, find themselves repeating patterns and habits without knowing how to change them, to get into certain kinds of loops that they just don't know how to change. Most of those times, those patterns and habits can be an institutional strength, like having quality worship, quality religious education programs. Other times in church life, it can be like the dreadful waking up that happens in that film, hearing Sonny and Cher's, "I got you, babe," over and over again. Because some patterns and habits got us over and over again, creating cyclical behavior that our congregation needs to examine to see if they're still serving us, serving who you are now and who you want to be in the future. So what I'm saying today will certainly be evolving as we get to know each other better. And I fully and freely admit I might be wrong about some things that I have to say to you today, and I trust that you all, as honest New Yorkers, will be direct and tell me, nope, that doesn't ring true for me or for what I know of All Souls. And that's only fair. In fact, that's your job as a member of the congregation. But now I'm going to do my job and tell you what I've seen so far. So, when I first began in ministry, what was modeled for me was mostly older male ministers that I respected. And the belief was that the people run the church. That is, you run the day-to-day operations of the church to enable the professional minister to do the ministries of the church, the preaching, the teaching, the pastoral care. But over the last 30 years or so, that model of the ivory tower minister sitting in his study, thinking deep thoughts and offering wisdom to the troubled, has shifted. I mean, I still do those things, think deep thoughts, within the limits of my time and ability. But today, I am a member of your ministry team and with the staff, and our job includes running the church effectively. And here's the most important part, so that you can find your ministry. Your ministry. And what do I mean by your ministry? It is to assist you to live into what you are called to do and be in the world, and to live it out with support of your fellow congregants, and also this church, to find what this church is called to be and do in the world and live it out. So in other words, this ministry is not about me. It's about you. It's always been about you. A minister's job is to inspire you, to provide you with the theological and spiritual tools and framework to do the ministry that calls you into ever-deepening levels of love and service. Most people do not join a church because they want to argue about the minutia of church institutional maintenance. If you do, if you're one of those people, come talk to me. I want to talk to you. Most people come to religious community because they want to find a place that shares their values and calls them into service in whatever way. It could be parenting, it could be music, it could be the arts, it could be social justice. But that is why we are compelled through the heart to join a church, especially at a time when our values feel so imperiled. So all this leads to my first point of observation in this annual report: your governance and your bylaws. These are the bones of an institution. And you have what I call a shared governance system. And it's a good one. There's nothing wrong with it. But what I think may be the problem, again, you can tell me I'm wrong, is that it was after it was implemented, the disciplines around governance were not consistently followed. Why? Well, you know, church life, boards and ministers can focus on what seems more urgent and crisis-oriented than tending to the sometimes just boring, pedantic work of governance. Although I don't think it's pedantic. I think it's pretty darn exciting, actually. But your board, in collaboration with the congregation, is charged with the supremely important work that is unique to their role, and that is to reflect on what are we as a church called to do and to be in the world. And that role is embedded in your governance system, and it works, but you've got to work it. And I can help you with that if you like. You already know that you need to update your bylaws, and the board needs to review, refresh, and engage its governing policies. And you, as a congregation, should engage in a process of creating what's called new end statements, new goals. You haven't done that in a long time. And it's an important process for a congregation to go through because it helps you understand in a deeper way what is your identity, what is important to us. But you've got some work to do before you get to that process. And that brings me to the second point: trust. Trust. Trust is a fragile thread that can be so easily broken. And in churches where there has been either misconduct or lack of accountability of leaders, members can begin to mistrust their institution. And when members begin to lose trust in their leaders or their institution, people get angry. And what's underneath that anger is usually pain and hurt, and an often inarticulated sense that the church could be better. This isn't the way the church should be. This isn't the way that I remember the church being. So what I felt in these past 32 days is incredible energy and hopefulness and a fierce love of this church. And I've also felt, heard sadness and grief and loss and pain. Some of you are really hurting, and some of you have hurt each other. And some of you, especially newer people, may not feel this way at all. But I want you to know that that issue is evident to me this first month with you. And it takes a long time for trust to rebuild. It takes small incremental steps, leaders listening closely, reflecting back, being vulnerable, admitting mistakes. And it takes congregants who are willing to forgive mistakes and indeed forgive themselves and one another and begin again, first with trust and then with community, maybe eventually, hopefully with love, loving all souls. So one of the ways that I hope to build trust with you is simply to listen to you, to show up at coffee hour, which I had no idea how important that was to you, for the minister to show up at coffee hour. I like coffee. I like you, you know? It's good. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to return your emails as promptly as I can, and if I can't, I'll tell you why. Building trust is holding the ministry, the staff, and all of you accountable to the values we profess. And a well-functioning church that operates within its bylaws, its governing policies, its standard operating procedures, and clearly defined roles, that creates a healthy church system. That's something that Reverend Pamela and Reverend Jessica and the staff and the board and all of us are working on. But there's a couple of things that you can do too. Support the staff in doing their job. I know they felt the love that you poured out on them, but treat them with respect. A climate of mutual respect will go a long way. They will work hard for you. They will go above and beyond for you. But you need to treat them with respect. And you can support your board, which doesn't mean that you just accept everything that they say. Of course, you can question. This is a democratic process, but do so in a respectful and civil manner. This board, your former boards, they're all volunteers who spend hours, weeks, and months of their time, energy, attempting to do their best. Being on the board is a spiritual practice, and it's hard work. And I love what one member said during a Tuesday talk. She said, I'm paraphrasing this a bit here, but she said, "We're all imperfect, mistakes happen. I do not believe there are any criminals in our board or our ministers or congregation. Let's put our dukes down." Let's put our dukes down. You can support each other even if you don't agree with each other. You can support the health of the congregation in many ways. You can be on the lookout for the newcomer or for the new parents who bring their baby into the sanctuary or the person looking lost at coffee hour. And you can support your church financially, which brings me to my third and last point that I wanted to cover in this report, church finances. There's a fair amount of anxiety floating around all congregations and denominations these days. Anxiety about finances, membership, children, families, whether or not churches can keep the doors open, make payroll. In that respect, All Souls is not unique. What I do find unusual is the culture surrounding money and giving here. Now, again, I could be wrong. Just saying, I could be wrong. But every church I've served has had an annual stewardship and all church canvas and pledge campaign every year, either in the fall or the spring. It's led by a team of volunteers, not the minister, but the minister is involved to provide inspiration, staff support to make it successful. Every member is expected to pledge something as they are able. And ministers preach stewardship sermons. Everybody kind of yawns and rolls their eyes. And they think about what it means to give to their own church. It's an annual ritual, but it makes a difference to be upfront about what the church needs and what the church spends. It's about the dollars raised, absolutely, but it's also about stewardship of the community's resources. This precious resource that is important to all of us. Isn't making an annual ask a lot of work? Yes, it is. Did anyone really like talking about money? No. We would all just prefer that it magically appear without any effort, right? But we're grown-ups. We're grown-ups in the room. And what happens when a congregation engages in conversations about their giving is that it provides an opportunity to talk about what is important to you and to hold each other accountable in love and respect for the health and future of your church. So I would encourage you to consider having an annual stewardship campaign. I think you had it probably before COVID, but COVID changes a lot. It's critical that we can talk about money and giving generously both to the operating budget and what's happening here with the launch of the second phase of your capital campaign. And thank you, Judy, for giving a big shout out to the capital campaign. Because, we are the beneficiary of this gorgeous sanctuary, which is the beneficiary of the first capital campaign. But you already know this. You need to make this second campaign a success. You have to do that. And at the meeting today at Capital Campaign, it was like, well, when should the campaign end? I said, I want it to end on my last Sunday preaching with you in June. June 26th, I think it is. I want to be able to stand before you and say the Capital Campaign has met its goals. Work has already begun, because the summer is a critical time to get some of this work done. But we're not going to start that work until we have the money in hand and make the promises. It's just irresponsible to do otherwise. We have $5.5 million to raise. And as I said, I'm hoping it can be raised by the end of June. So there are going to be other issues to address that I'll be addressing in the Tuesday talks, newsletter columns, from the pulpit, small group conversations, and other issues that I can't fully address here, but I've heard and I'm concerned about for you, like rebuilding your religious education program for children and adults, developing a healthy relationship with the Unitarian Universalist Association, recommitting yourself to becoming an anti-racist, anti-oppressive institution and doing the work that that means. And God, we need that, especially now. I wanted All Souls to put a big sign out there this week that said, "We teach DEI here." Just, and we love our trans siblings here. Yeah, I'm not putting the picture of that on my altar anytime of the, anyway, you got the idea. One other thing is learning how to do conflict constructively. Those are skills that we can use in our lives, but certainly in church, you know, when we want everything to be lovely and wonderful, and when it's not, it's like, oh, it hurts the heart. So, and of course, funding your future. So I'm here to tell you that with solid interim work and your commitment to do the work, I really believe All Souls will be even healthier and even stronger. So I'm going to close because today is Groundhog Day. And I reminded you of this by reflecting on the film. And those of you who have seen the movie know that, you know, he gets in the same day over and over again, but it's not the end of the story. The only way he gets out of that terrible time warp is when he discovers kindness in himself and the people around him and love, which changes him and in turn changes his life. That turnaround happened because he fell in love. I want you to fall in love with your church again. Or if you haven't fallen out of love, then deepen your commitment to see the way that this time of transition can be so fruitful. Be generous with yourself, be generous with one another and with the institution. We can all do better, of course. We'll make advances together, we'll experience failures. But hopefully we'll also learn to forgive and not be shaped by our wounds, but by the health and the strength and the love that I see just 32 days into this ministry. So blessings. Blessings to you, All Souls. I am honored to be on this journey with you. Thank you. Check, check, check. There we go. So the Q&A, should I just continue or you want to do it? Yeah, the Q&A is primarily directed to what you heard, questions you want to ask from the minister's report. If you have other questions that are outside the minister's report, we have some paper that we can pass around. You can write them down. Joe Izzo is here if you have a specific question about the audit. But we were really hoping to just have Q&A, particularly about the minister's report. And who would like to run around and use the mic? You have to talk right into it.
Oh, yeah. So who has a first question? I can run to you, I can walk to you, whatever you wish.
Roll.
Oh, back there. Dennis, you got to get first.
And say your name if you could, because I'm still trying to learn all your names, all 765 names.
Thanks. My name is Dennis DeForge, and it's a general question about the voting. I have two questions. How big is our voting base, and how many people actually voted today?
So the question is, how big is the voting base and how many people actually voted today? I cannot answer that question, and I'm going to jot it down. We can get back to you. I don't know the answer to that. 761 members who qualified. Yeah, people doing the counting could give you the final number, but Tom just said the members are about 761, and we do not yet know how many people voted because they're still being counted.
Tara McNamara. You mentioned in your report about democracy. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is that better? Yeah. You mentioned in your report about democracy and trust, which I've really felt has really suffered over the past dozen years or so. And I'm really happy that you addressed it because it's I'm sure I'm not alone in this. One of the things that I've struggled with is the one voice policy that the board put into place. I want to say it was in around 2008. I mean, we used to have this annual meeting where people could really share and communicate their thoughts, and sometimes it got a little contentious, but we all felt involved, or at least I did. And now I'm here because I feel it's an obligation, but why am I really here when I could, not much is being said. And back to the one voice, democracy. I grew up as a UU, so democracy has always been really important to me. And I've been struggling because, of course, majority rules is democracy, but not allowing people to share, just like in Congress or on the Supreme Court, we have dissenting opinions that are shared. And why is it that we are not allowed to have that viewpoint shared with the congregation? And why aren't we able to have democracy in our congregation? So thank you for listening.
I'd like to address that, and I want to acknowledge right now that there's a lot of history that I don't know. The policy or the practice of speaking with one voice is actually the most misunderstood piece of policy-based governance. And it is when the board makes a decision, they speak with one voice. And the idea is because the board represents the body, and the board has gone through a lot of deliberations. And so the one voice is after a decision is made. That doesn't mean that there isn't dissension on the board. That doesn't mean there are different opinions. But it does prevent splintering and fragmentation from the board. This does not apply to the congregation. This is not a principle that was ever intended to apply to the congregation. So it is, along with the other disciplines of policy-based governance, it is actually a practice that has worked extremely well in other congregations. I don't know how it was practiced here, but it is well within the disciplines of governance and process. In churches that I've seen have done policy-based governance extremely well, but it is definitely misunderstood. And I'm not saying that it's misunderstood from you, but from in general. I can tell. We'll have to talk.
Okay. Again, I mean, there's one voice, but that definitely has not happened here because, we're all part of the decisions. We hear the decisions, and then we're like, wow, I put the board up there, and no one that I voted for is, representing my viewpoint. And again, the idea is, and I mean, we've had so many board members that they go on the board and they they believe in All Souls, and then they get off the board and they leave. We never see them again, and I'm so thankful that some people are back. Thank you. But it's just so toxic, and I have been a member a long time, so I've gotten to see this. And I mean, even I'm like, I can't believe I'm still a member based on the way I felt and stuff like that. I'd love to get back to being excited to be part of All Souls again. And I'm fighting for it, and I love so many people here, and even I love everybody who's on the board, most of them personally and stuff. It's just the institution, and I struggle. I mean, at least we should be able to say we're speaking with one voice, and the vote was 7-2 or whatever, and say there was a dissenting opinion. I really think democracy is one of the things, and I thought the church was much better when we actually had a lot more positive communication. And it still didn't negate the fact that, majority rules. So.
Well, that's why I talked about your governance as something to look at quite seriously. I do want to say anecdotally, I was talking to a fellow colleague, and I said, this was the last church I served that I was going to the board meeting, and she sort of went, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, no, you don't understand. The board meetings are the most spiritually rewarding experiences of my ministry, the board meetings. So I have experienced boards that function not only extremely well, but who have high-level conversations about the values of the church, and that are invigorating and exciting and powerfully transformative. So I have that experience within me as well. Other questions, please.
Hi, I'm Susie Salomon. I have actually two different questions for you. One is, I forgot one. Okay.
Sorry, Susie.
We are a congregation of people who are in the midst of struggle and some conflict and trying to find our way, as is our country at this moment. I look around this room, and I want to applaud you for emphasizing DEI, because I don't see much DEI present in this room at the moment. And it's a very, very complex, very difficult issue for us as a congregation and for the world, frankly, not just the United States to be dealing with. But I hope it's something that many of us who are here are not here today will really think hard and fast about what we as individuals and as members of this congregation can do to affect some changes in that area. That's number one. The other thing is that we are a spiritual congregation. Values and ethics are what we're all about, or mainly all about. But we are an organization too. And sometimes it's difficult for the head of the church to be able to do two things. And I know we're always short of money, and we're certainly focusing right now on renovation of this magnificent facility. But I hope as we go forward, we can somehow find the resources to, at least over time, a part-time position or something like that, have an executive director who will work more closely with the staff and the administrative functions of this organization, so that we can more smoothly focus on the spiritual needs of everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. I'm going to close this because I see Dixie going, I think it's time. I just want to say about DEI work, anti-racism, anti-oppression. It is a concerted and consistent effort on behalf of the entire congregation, which permeates everything from your bylaws to your governing policies, to your worship life, to your music, to your staffing. And so it is a long-term project, but it won't happen without leadership and without commitment on part of the congregation. So anyway, thank you all so much. And, again, this is just the beginning of a longer conversation. Have you got the results? Oh, right. All right. Drum roll, please.
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of the people that agreed, agreed to run for the board. And I also want to thank Kathleen and Jennifer and all of you for coming. So the new trustees, Ann Bradley, Richard Esposito, and Melinda Foy. And I want to remind you that we will have a brief board meeting after we adjourn. Jennifer Vermont Davis has been reelected as clerk, and Marilyn Collins, Tim Kelly, Karen Steele have been elected to the deacons. Thank you very much. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer to officially close the meeting. Yes, we'll have it.
So again, our dear friend, colleague, Minister Pamela Patton was to deliver the benediction, and I'm saying this in her stead. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us now and always. Go in peace and bless you. May it be so.
And our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.